started recording.
Okay.
It's fine. Okay, so we are starting. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Good evening to all. By my bad throat. Friends, this evening we are going to read a text of great significance to the Vishishtadvaita tradition and in Indian philosophy, for Indian philosophy in general. Rich in philosophy as it is, we have already had a taste of the text for this particular group of people who have been joining us for the study circle when Dr. Usha read the Anumana Khanda of the Deepika. What attracted most as an epistemologist, I have been greatly been attracted with their notion of jnana. The Vishishtadvaita tradition has a very peculiar definition of jnana as attributive in nature, and this is very famous. This is famous because the Dharmabhuta jnana, as it has been called, is attributed, it's not substantive, and has serious implications both to contemporary studies in consciousness, contemporary consciousness studies, as well as that of cognitive science. And I wish that youngsters and those who have had their doctoral programs could take up such projects and dive deep into it. So, friends, all of you know how significant Shabda Pramana is for a Vedantin, and Vishishtadvaitan is no exception to this general rule. So, substantiating the Vaidika Shabda as infallible, as as his predecessors did. See, what Ramanuja does is that his contribution in Shabda Pramana is specifically this, that he has, kind of amalgamated the Karmakanda and the Jnana Kanda, and then try to argue that one complements the other. While the Karmakanda speaks about the Upasana Krama, the Jnana Kanda goes in detail about the nature of Brahman and Subhasana. So now, to go in detail to this Shabda Pramana and the philosophies of it is not my intention at all. I'm just trying to set a stage for my good friend Professor Narasimhan. So as you know that unlike Mimamsakas, again, this is a specific contribution of Vishishtadvaita, that unlike the Mimamsakas, they do not insist on the sadhya alone. They say that both the siddha as well as the sadhya prepositions are significant, as well as the Vedic injunctions or Vedic prepositions are concerned. And yet another contribution of Vishishtadvaita is that along with the Shruti, along with the Vaidika texts, they have also embraced Pancharatra Agamas and the Vaidhayana Agamas, which do not contradict the Vedic authoritative texts. So this is the conditional clause with which these texts have been incorporated into the Shruti, the Shabda Pramana, or the infallible Shabda Pramana. And he has given a beautiful definition of what Shabda Jnana is. Anapta Anukta Vakya Jarita Tadabdha Vijnanam Shabda Jnanam. And then he goes on distinguishing about the types of Shabda and the intricacies of it, which I'm sure Professor Narasimhan will deal in a very efficient fashion. The topic is so very delicate and significant, particularly for the Vedantins of all streams, that we needed an efficient hand to deal with it. And Professor Narasimhan is one who is not only a scholar in the Vishishtadvaita tradition, he is a practicing Vishishtadvaitin as well. It is one thing to study it as a text, as we all do, and quite another to live with it. I have known him for several years since my times in the University of Madras. A brilliant student, as he was, Professor Narasimhan. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with him and his scholarly deliberations, gold medalist throughout his student days. He was former professor and head of the Department of Sanskrit University of Madras. In his brilliant career, he has produced 9 PhDs and authored 6 books, 25 papers. And in fact, he is a Darshanika evam Vaiyakaranascha. Both streams are pretty comfortable with him. And I'm sure the topic is, of course, huge, and there can be crisscrossing comparison that might be needed while you speak about the Shabda Pramana of the Vishishtadvaita, as I have indicated. Shabda Pramana has been enriched by the Vishishtadvaita significantly, so much so that it has that this is how you'll have to contextualize the tradition. Do you know why Indian philosophy has survived despite continued attacks from external agencies, be it the Mughals or the other people from the east or from the west? The single reason is that it has been revived and it has been contextualized, something which has not been happening since the beginning of 20th century, and as a result you see the apachaya of our tradition. I do not want to speak more in front of Professor Narasimhan. He is a scholarly mind and who is very contemporaneous on this topic that I am addressing about updating, contextualizing our tradition. You should not keep it in a mummified form. That will not last long. You will have to contextualize it, as masters have done. See how Ramanuja has creatively laid his hands on it, and followed by the later preceptors. This kind of a tradition has not been followed in the later years, and today you have something which is, it's a kind of a treasure chest. Very often I say that this treasure chest is a very bad analogy. What is wrong with this treasure chest is that you if you keep taking from it at one point, you'll get exhausted. The chest will get exhausted. Instead, I prefer the analogy of a flowing river. A river is something which keeps flowing. There is no end to it. So our philosophy should be a kind of a flowing river, rather than a treasure chest which is static and which has the threat of being exhausted at one point of time. So with all pride and pleasure, may I have Professor Narasimhan to read this wonderful text, Yatīndramatadīpika, and particularly the Śabdapariccheda. Over to Professor Narasimhan. Thank you.
Thank you, Resh, Professor Nair, for your kind words about me, which I don't think I deserve. I invite Professor Pranisulam.
Here. Welcome, Professor Pranisulam.
Nice to
Thank you.
hear. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Narasimhan. How are you? Fine.
Fine, sir. By God's grace, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So, as requested by Professor Nair, I thought of doing this Yatīndramatadīpika Shabda Pramana, but then when I went through that, I thought something could be supplied from the Nyaya Parishuddhi of Vedanta Deshika that would complement the discussion, I thought. So I have included some things from the which I think is more relevant also. So let me, without much ado, start the topic. We'll go into it. So yeah, as all of us know, it's a very important source of knowledge, but still it has not been accepted as a pramana by some very few. It has not been comprehensively defined by some also. So we will see some salient points based on this Yatīndramatadīpika and Nyaya Parishuddhi. So there are three pramanas, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Shabda, but additionally there are some others also accepted by others. I mean, Nayayikas and Advaitins accept the Upamana Pramana, and some others accept other pramanas like, 6 pramanas accepted by the Mīmamsakas, that is Bhata Mīmamsakas and Advaitins. So all of these things we know. Now, these are the basic pramanas, 3, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Shabda. These are the most basic pramanas. So man grasps things from outside both these sensory faculties. So they are their primary sources. That is called perceptual knowledge. Now, then based on these observed things, man also makes inferences. That is called anumana. But there is also another source called the Shabda or verbal testimony. It can be either written or spoken. This is also, of course, based on perception. So first one needs to perceive the words through listening or reading. The words that are thus perceived give rise to some knowledge. That is called as Shabda Pramana or verbal testimony. Of the three, this is a very major source of knowledge in our day-to-day affairs also. Just imagine man without this Shabda, he would be as good as an animal only. Without there would not have been much communication among fellow beings. With all the other faculties, man would not have been able to do any of the things that he has achieved now. So it is accepted as a pramana by almost all schools of philosophy, barring of course the Charvakas and the Buddhists and Vaisheshikas, not Nayayikas. Charvakas don't accept, of course, for this reason that they accept only Pratyaksha as a pramana, nothing else. They don't even accept Anumana. But I think we need to delve deep, more into their view. What is the reason they do it? There is something that they want to convey through this, I think. Next is Vaisheshikas. They accept only 2 pramanas, Pratyaksha Anumana, not Shabda. They want to bring it under Anumana itself. Nayayikas, of course, accept Shabda as a pramana. Here it's here that we find the definition of Shabda as Aptopadesha Shabda. That is a trustworthy statement made by a reliable person. That is what is Shabda. Almost Sankhya's define it in the same mean. Apta Shrutir Apta Vachanantu, he says in the Sankhya Karika. Now there is this definition is of course not accepted by the Mīmamsakas and the Vedantins, because for them Veda is a pramana, not only a pramana, it is also one that has not been given by the. Somebody they can give. Okay. Now, Nayayikas accept Vedas as pramanas, but the definition is applicable there. Their definition is applicable there because all Vedas, according to them, are Ishvara Prokta, and for them Ishvara is an Apta. So that way the definition takes care of the Vedas also. But in the case of Mīmamsakas and Vedantins, Advaitins, Vishishta Advaitins, all these Vedantins, for them, Vedas are not God-given even. They are there eternal. They are eternal. They are Nitya and Apaurushaya. They are impersonal. They are not given even by, issued even by God. But still, they are also valid sources of knowledge. Hence, they have to come under this Shabda Pramana. So accordingly, Mīmamsakas give a definition of Shabda Pramana like this. Shabdam, Shabda Vijnanad, Asannikrishte Arthe Vijnanam. This is the definition given by Shabara. Shabdam, Shabda Vijnana Asannikrishte Arthe Vijnanam. It is a statement which produces in the mind of the hearer, who knows the meanings of words and knowledge of facts that lie beyond the range of his perception. Okay, so that is actually a statement. It gives a knowledge, but that knowledge is beyond his perceptual knowledge. If such a knowledge is produced, that is what he says is a Shabda Jnana. Now, in this, there is no mention about whether the statement is from a reliable source or a reliable person kind of thing, though that is, of course, intended. Now, Kumarla states, a statement of a reliable person cannot be the definition of verbal testimony, because in that case, in the case of Vedas, there is no apta. In the case of worldly statements also, they do not become valid just by virtue of their being issued by a reliable person, but because all pramanas are self-valid. This is a very important point of the Mimamsakas. So, not because it is given by a reliable person that a statement becomes valid or Shabda Pramana, but it is Pramana because it is a Swatah Pramana. All Pramanas are Swatah Pramana. So, these are statements, shlokas from Shlokavartika of Kumarla. Tena cha aptopadeshatvam nasyat agama lakshanam naptasya sambhavo vede loke nasmat pramanata purastat varanitam hyatad tasmat chabdena ya matihi tasya swatah pramanatvam nachet syat dosha darshanam. In these two shlokas he says, the bottom you have seen. In the case of Prabhakara, Vedas come under the category of verbal testimony, but not the statements of humans. This is a very peculiar view. For him, only the Vedas are come under the category of Shabda Pramana. Now, the reason he gives is humans are, of course, are subject to errors and faults. Hence, their statements always cannot be trustworthy. So, they cannot be given the status of a Pramana. At best, he says they can be brought under the Anumana Pramana. Now, this is because when a speaker utters a statement, the hearer infers his intention, which is why it's had to bring it under Anumana. Now, the Vishishtadvaitins want to strike a middle ground. Swami Deshika, he states in his Nyaya Parishuddhi, this is what is Shabda Pramana. Anapta Anupta Vakya Janitam Tadartha Vijnanam Tat Pramanam. Anapta Anupta Vakya Janitam Tadartha Vijnanam Tat Pramanam. This definition is verbatim given by, reproduced by Srinivasacharya in his Yatīndramatadīpika. Now let's see the definition. The operative part of the definition is Vakya Janitam Vijnanam Tat Pramanam. That is Tat Shabda Pramanam. That is, Shabda Pramana is nothing but the knowledge that arises from verbal statements. Or, instead of stating only this much, something more is given. Vakya is qualified by the words Anapta Anupta and Vijnana by the word Tadatha. That is, Anapta Anupta should have been given as Aptokta, which is what is the sense actually intended. Then that will mean any verbal statement given by an apta, a credible and a trustworthy person, will be a pramana, which will be categorized as Shabda Pramana. This will be reasonably a correct definition. But instead of giving it in a direct way like this, it is given using double negatives as Anapta Anupta, that which has not been issued by an Anapta, that is a non-trustworthy person, that is a Shabda Pramana, that is Shabda Pramana. Oh, of course, we know the reason why such a roundabout way. There is a constraint. It should be applicable to Vedas. So that is the reason why Vedas have no opta. We have seen that. So to bring Vedas under the ambit of this definition, they have given it as Anapta Anupta. The next is inclusion of the word Tadartha Vijnanam. Why the word Tadartha? Now, suppose it is given like Aptokta Vijnanam Aptokta Vakya Janitam Vijnanam Shabda Pramanam, Shabdam Pramanam. Let's assume that this is the definition that is given. Now, it will be misleading and even it will be erroneous. That is, when a verbal statement either is heard or read, it is first ingested or absorbed by the listener. At this stage, there is just the apprehension of the sentence or statement per se. Subsequently, the absorbed sentence gives its meaning. So actually what happens is, when a speaker tries to convey something, whatever he tries to convey, he encodes it in the form of sentences and speaks out. So the listener who knows the language, knows the words and their meanings kind of things, he listens what has been given by the speaker. So those words or sentences are absorbed by him and they are processed in his mind, and out of the absorbed, heard sentence, meaning is extracted out of that. So they are decoded and meaning obtained by the listener. This is what happens in the process, and this is why it is not brought under Pratyaksha itself, because Pratyaksha stops at the level of getting the words or sentences issued by the speaker. After taking them, the meaning is extracted out of the sentences by the listener. So that is where it stands out as a separate pramana. Now the initial knowledge of the sentence is through perception, which is not verbal testimony. Sentence, this is what we saw. This is what we sought to. It is what is sought to be conveyed by the word. So precisely the reason is Shabda is given as pramana is it is apart from the Pratyaksha. So that is why it is given Tadartha Vijnana, Tat Artha Vijnana. So to make it very clear, this has been given. Now, when a definition is given, it should be justified. It should be free from errors. It should not be over-applicable kind of things. Now, here, verbal testimony is defined as meaning conveyed by a sentence that is not given by a non-trustworthy person. But then, how should such a sentence become a pramana? How should it become a trusted source of knowledge? The reason given is Karana dosha Badhaka Adarshanath. These are the two things that are most important. Karana dosha Badhaka Adarshanath. Karana dosha Adarshanath, Badhaka Adarshanath. That is, should something be invalid, there should be some defect in its source, or it should be subsequently observed to be sublated. If neither is there, then that remains valid. In the case of Vedas or any statements by Aptas, neither is seen, due to which they become valid by default. On the other hand, in the case of statements of non-trustworthy persons, since both the above, that is Karana dosha or Badhaka darshana, or one of them is observed, they become invalid. This way, Shabda Pramana would entail its giving up in its entirety. This is because for Shabda to become a Pramana, there is an object. This is an objection raised with an opponent. So, for Shabda to become a Pramana, it should be free from Karana dosha. That is, should not have been issued by, should have been issued by a faultless source. But this Karana dosha will be, or is likely to be there, even in the words of an Apta. Hence, Shabda Pramana itself will have to be given up, for it cannot be from a trusted source. Actually, this happens to be the view of the Prabhakaras, which has been referred to earlier. But this is a very shoddy objection. The objector effectively says that all Shabdas by default would be invalid by virtue of being Shabdas, since there is Karana dosha in every Apta, by virtue of the Apta being a human. This is this presumption. Now, since the statement itself is a Shabda, it will make itself invalid, thereby make it self-contradictory. This is what Vedanta Deshika observes. So, when you say, whatever you say, that itself is a statement. How can we assume that that is valid? Because Karana dosha will be there here also. So, that itself will make it invalid. So, Vakyatvad Bihi Badaha Swajana Virodhat. Now, if you examine the statement further, there are two options possible. Either it can be valid or invalid. If it is invalid, it cannot prove what it intends to prove. Hence, it will not make Shabda Pramana invalid. Or if it is valid, that it is the statement, all Shabdas by default will be invalid, is valid, then here again there will be two options, whether this statement itself is included within the purview of all Shabdas or not. If included, then that will make it invalid. If not, the expression all Shabdas will be meaningless. Anyway, Shabda Pramana will not become invalid and it will emerge that all Shabdas by default will be Pramanas unless there is some Karana Dosha or Badhaka Darshana. As stated earlier, Shabda is a different Pramana. It is different from both Pratyaksha and Anumana. That is again sought to be established. It is different from Pratyaksha because the meaning that is conveyed by the perceived statement is over and above the statement itself that has been grasped. On that count, it doesn't become Anumana either because there are no such factors like Paksha, Hetu, Paramarsha kind of things. So it doesn't come under Anumana also. But is it valid to say that it cannot be brought under Anumana also? Some objections are there. This is because during the process of learning of a child, it is seen to be otherwise. When a child learns a language, it makes observations and actually draws inferences. It makes observations of the elders and draws inferences. When someone says something which is carried out by some other, it makes inferences that those words that are uttered have these meanings. Maybe somebody says Gam Anaya and somebody brings a cow. Then the same person says Gam Badhana and the other just goes and ties the cow. Observing these things, the child infers that the word go means the cow and Anaya means bringing and Bandhana means tying the cow. So all these it has inferred. Now, how can you say when such things happen that Shabda Pramana could not be brought under Anumana? So the reply is that it's an observed fact that there is inference during the learning process. But it's limited to the child learning the meanings of words from the observed words and subsequent actions, since it does not know the meanings of those words. Once the word meanings are learned, the import conveyed by the meanings is said to be different. So that is not something that is inferred, and that is what is categorized as Shabda, which is different from Anumana. Actually, there is an element of Anumana in Shabda, yeah, we do agree. The Anumana is like this: from what is spoken by the speaker, the listener does make inference about the speaker's knowledge, his intention, kind of things. Maybe this is what might have misled people like Vaisheshikas, Prabhakaras to bring it under inference. That is a different issue. But the apprehended words convey some meaning, which is an internal process. It is neither perception nor inference. So it stands established as a separate pramana. Now, having said this, now Yatīndramatadīpika discusses about very many things that are too wide, especially about Vedas, Vedangas. It goes on discussing those things. But I think for our purpose, these things are more important that are given by Vedanta Deshika in his Śabdapariccheda Nyaya-Parishuddhi. So, when Shabda becomes a pramana, there are some vrittis like Abhida, Lakshana, Vyanjana kind of vrittis. So, we need to look into these aspects of Shabdas also. Words often convey more than one meaning. And they are actually listed as different meanings in the lexicons also. That is, words do have more than one lexical meanings. Now, it's not a problem to have many meanings for words, to have many meanings. And to list all those things in the lexicons also. But we quite often encounter instances where words convey non-lexical meanings. For instance, when it is said, Gangayam Goshaha, that is a hamlet in the river Ganga, it is perceived to be incompatible but still is not dismissed as meaningless. It's rather understood, and also understood in the right way, the way in which it is intended by the speaker. So the incompatibility here is that the word Ganga indicates a river which is a water body. The existence of hamlet there is incompatible. This is what is the incompatibility there. Now this is known to the speaker and also to the listener. Still, the speaker issues such a statement and the listener takes it without much ado, since both could understand and appreciate the purport intended to be conveyed. The intended meaning here is Ganga doesn't mean the river Ganga, but it means the Ganga Tira or the bank of the river Ganga. But he could have stated it as Ganga Tire Goshaha, but states it as Ganga. There are reasons for that. Why they say that because the listener, the speaker, wants to convey the sense that if it is said, say, suppose Ganga Tire Goshaha, people may mistake that somewhere near the bank, okay, not even on the bank, somewhere close to the bank. Such a meaning may be conveyed to the listener. So actually, the hamlet is not somewhere close to the bank even; it is right on the bank. Just on the backyard of the bank, there is the river Ganga. It is rather as good as it's being there on the Ganga itself. That is what is the intended meaning, and that is rightly taken by the listener. And the reason why he wants to insist these things is, see, my place is it is very very close to the Ganga. You can infer its holiness, its cool being, all these things. Okay. Now, the question is whether the word Ganga can convey the meaning Ganga Tira. It's of course not its lexical meaning, and is never understood that way other than contextually. The question is whether Ganga can convey the meaning. Yeah, it is in the affirmative. And this is what is made possible by the powers of words called vrittis. Some say there are two powers, Abhidha and Lakshana, or Abhidha or Upachara vritti, these two only. But many Alankarikas accept that there is a third vritti called the Vyanjana vritti. Mimamsakas accept only these two, not the Vyanjana. What is Abhidha? That is the primary or lexical meaning of the word, and the Lakshana is the secondary meaning. I like this when Ganga conveys the word Ganga Tira, meaning Ganga Tira. The latter occurs when there is some incompatibility for the former. In this instance, Gangayam Ghoshaha, there is incompatibility in the word Ganga conveying its primary meaning, and hence it conveys the secondary meaning. That is through the Lakshana vritti. The next important discussion will be regarding the sentence meanings. As far as Shabda Pramana is concerned, how sentence meanings are arrived at during normal communication, that is internally, in the case of the listeners. This is necessitated because language operates only through sentences and communication occurs only through them, not through words, not through letters. It is only through sentences. But sentences are made of words, and they can even be said to be the basic building blocks, even though they are made of letters. Letters can't be said to be the basic building blocks. So words are the most primary units of the language. Only they have meanings, and they go to make the sentences. Its sentence is not just a sentence. Is not just a group of words heaped in a haphazard manner, but arranged in a regular manner, in a specific manner rather, so that there is struck a unique connection called the syntactic connection among the words. Due to this, the sentence meaning is not just the meanings of the individual words put together, but something over and above that. It's like the construction of a building using bricks. Though a building is made of bricks, yet it is not just not just that bricks are stacked up together, but they are arranged in a very systematic and structured manner. Same is the case with words making sentences. That being the case, sentence meaning also cannot be and will not be the meanings of the individual words put together. Now, the question is how sentence meaning is arrived at. There are two views regarding that. That's called the Anvitabhidhanavada and Abhihitanvayavada. Now, what are these? Let's see. This has been given by, discussed by the Mimamsakas. Now, this is the shloka given by Kumarada. He says, Padajatam Shrutam Sarvam Smarita Ananvitarthakam Nyaya Sampadita Vyakti Paschat Vakyartha Bodhagam. Padajatam Shrutam Sarvam Smarita Ananvitarthakam Nyaya Sampadita Vyakti Paschat Vakyartha Bodhagam. What does it mean? Padajatam Shrutam. First, words are heard by the listener. Shrutam Sarvam. Now, what happens? Smarita Ananvitarthakam. At once, they prompt a recollection of their meanings, which are as yet unconnected to each other syntactically. Smarita Ananvitarthakam. Anvita, there is no anvaya, there is no syntactic connection among them as yet. First, they are heard, words are heard, their meanings are recollected. As yet, there is no syntactic connection among those words. Then, Nyaya Sampadita Vyakti Paschat Vakyartha Bodhakam. When there is such a recollection, what happens? There arises a consideration of factors such as Akanksha, Yogyata, Asati, kind of things. What is Akanksha? That is expectancy, mutual expectancy. Yogyata, that is compatibility. Suppose somebody says, Gauhu Gachati. Now, the word Gauhu means a cow. When somebody says cow, there arises an expectancy in us. What cow mean? Cow, then what? Is it going or sitting or eating or doing something else? So, what you want to, what is sought to be conveyed? So, there arises some expectancy with this. Then somebody says, Gachati. With this, our expectancy is fulfilled. Yeah, goes. That's okay. But somebody says, Sinchati, drowses. Okay, we immediately expect somebody, there is some fire. Somebody doses somebody tries to douse the fire with water. So we expect Jalena Sinchati. But the person says, Vanina Sinchati. Rather, sprinkles. Sinchati means sprinkles. So sprinkles means we expect it is Jalena Sinchati. But we says, if somebody says Vanina Sinchati, he sprinkles with fire. What nonsense. We are taken aback. How is it possible? Why? Because there is what is known as no yogyata here. There is no yogyata here. There is no compatibility between these two words. So, when a sentence is made, the meanings of the words are recollected, and then some syntactic connection is struck based on factors like this yogyata, then akanksha, yogyata, then sanidhi. Now, based on these things, there is the functioning of what is known as nyaya, that is a general or universal rule. So, here we see that there is no yogyata because universally we have never observed sprinkling by fire. So, when that comes into operation, we find the word vanina sinchati is apramana. It doesn't convey any meaning. It rather becomes meaningless. So, there is a consideration about what could be the meaning intended to be conveyed by sentence. So when all these things are done, there is the manifestation of the basic meaning of the entire sentence by the words having individual meanings. This is what is the Anvitabhidanavada. In effect, though words convey their meanings initially, that is not all. Their relational meaning is arrived at only from the meaning of the sentence, which again is arrived at after due deliberations about the proximity, compatibility, akanksha, etc. of the constituent words. This much about Anvita Abhidhana. Now let's see the Abhihita Anvayavada. What is this? Words first indicate their meanings individually. This is common to both. Now, when those meanings are deliberated upon, considering factors like Yogyata, Kanksha, as we saw earlier, that is through a particular way of connecting, there is a syntactical way. Now, at this stage, according to this Vada, there is no functioning of words. See, first there is hearing of the words, then there is the recollection of the meanings of the words. Now there is no more functioning of the words. There is only functioning of the meanings. And thus the meanings of the words after due deliberation convey the meaning of the sentence. We can see there is some similarity with respect to the poetic compositions in this Vada, Abhidhanvaya Vada. Poets, when they start composing something, they first think of the meanings of words from which they arrive at the meanings of sentences. Subsequently, in accordance with the sentence meanings, they will pick the right words. Just please note these things. They will think of the meanings of words, not the words per se, because there may be several words conveying the same meaning. Now, based on those meanings, they will think of sentence meanings, and accordingly, they will try to pick the right word in accordance with the sentence meanings. So, similarly, in normal parlance also, meanings of words convey meanings of sentences, and based on the sentences, the meanings of words will be again arrived at. This will be the Abhihita Anvayavada. First, in sum, we can see words express their meanings, which will convey the meanings of the sentences. Then the sentence meaning will be arrived at from the word meanings. From the meanings that are arrived at, of the sentences, word meanings will be again arrived at based on the relational meaning, based on the context, etc. This is because, as we saw in places like Gangayam Goshaha, there will be the word meaning, then the sentence meaning, and again there is again the word meaning as Ganga meaning only Ganga Tira. There are several such instances in common parlance. Suppose somebody praises something. Somebody says the voice of the girl so sweet. Actually, it was like listening to. It was simple music. It was Veena Gana, kinds of things we say. So the girl has spoken. The listener says it was not speech; it was Veena Gana. How could it be? Because of this Abhihita Anvayavada says. So Veena Gana here doesn't mean that she was playing some Veena kind of things. She was only speaking, but according to him, it was as sweet as the Veena Gana, and that is arrived at from the through this Abhihita Anvayavada. Now, of the two, Anvita Bhidana is of course preferable to the Vishishta Dvaitins, but Swami Deshika says, still we are not very particular about it. He says, Ittam Matva Sayutyaha Katijit अभिहितन्याय संसर्गम ईशुः तत्तत् स्वारस्य लोक प्रतिपादन गमाच्च न अधिक्षिपामः. We don't just exclude the other vada, though anvita abhidana is preferable to us. The idea is getting sentence meaning from out of the words uttered by a speaker is an extremely swift process. It occurs within a fraction of a second. We actually follow the speaker as he speaks, as he uses his sentences. It goes without our notice. So what actually happens internally is a very big mystery. It is tried to be analyzed and probable theories are put forth like this. Maybe both are possible at different instances or at the same instance also. So that is why Swami Deshika says we are not very particular that only this is correct or that is correct. So verbal testimony is certainly a pramana of its own and it cannot be reduced to anumana. It is thus established on a firm footing by the Vedantins. As it is defined, it is almost said that Shabda becomes a pramana by default, which actually is in accordance with the Swata Pramanya Vada. It's also established as different from perceptual knowledge and inference, and limiting objections, offering suitable replies. Itham Shabda Pramanasya Vicharo Vidusham Mude Vedantaryoktamagrena Dimmatram Darshitam Maya Doshaschet Suchatam Mudam Gunaschet Grihyatam Budhaihi. So I have tried to put it in a nutshell the views of Vedantins on this Shabda Pramana. If there are any defects, please do point out. If there are some merits, okay. Thank you. Shall we stop or shall we proceed with something else in the Yatīndramatadīpika time permits, if you want? Or else we can stop also. We can go. It will be open for questions. Or after questions also, we can take some more discussions if you, as you like. Madam, you could have to unmute, madam. Unmute.
Thank you so much, Professor Narasimhan, for that lovely presentation. Before I open it for discussion, I wanted a small clarification. Sadajatam Shrutam Sarvam Smaritam Ananvidardhadam Nyaya Sampadita Vyakti. What is that? The remaining part of it?
Nyaya Sampadita Vyakti Paschad Vakyartha Bodhakam. Paschad
Vakyartha Bodhakam. Okay. Where is this from?
Kumarada's Shlokavatika.
Shlokavatika. Thank you. All right. Now, I'm just initiating the discussion so that the youngsters can think of these two, the Abhidanvayavada and Anudabhidanavada, as I see Abhidanvayavada, the contextualist version of the theory of meaning, seems more suitable for what Mimamsakas are trying to drive it. The other one doesn't, although both of them are called semantic theories. I think Professor Pannisalam is also here.
Of course.
Both of them are titled as semantic theories, but then the other one seems to be more, has a tendency leaning towards the syntactic version, because it is the word meaning. Word meaning is anyway been given. And then, of course, they get placed in the sentences, and it has not been pronounced that the word meaning has undergoes any kind of a change as they get placed in the sentence. So in that,
not necessarily, but at some places, they do undergo change.
They do undergo change. Probably that is why they are.
Ganga takes the meaning Ganga Tira. It occurs in many places without our noticing these things. Because we are so used to it.
All right. That is where the Vajyardha is not available, you are adopting the Vangyardha, right?
Vangya is a different vritti, madam. It's over and above these two.
Okay.
Vengya.
The implication. Yeah. You
Suggested
were saying
meaning,
something?
suggested meaning, that is a totally different issue. For instance, I say, you spoke so beautifully, madam, today, when you actually spoken very badly. To convey such
Understood.
vibrant things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarcasm kind, right?
Those things are Vengya. Yeah. Suggested.
Sarcasm. Yeah.
I can give you some examples from the Dhonyaloka also, if you want.
I'm familiar. Okay. So this contextualist theory of meaning, quite some time back, I've written a paper on contextualism, and there is a lot that we can juxtapose with contemporary semantic theories, particularly where meanings are asked to be contextualized, then placed
Incidentally,
in the syntactic fashion. So
incidentally,
this is
Vyakarana
just
Shastra is
to
called Padashastra, Nyaya Shastra is called Pramana Shastra, Mimamsa is called Vakya Shastra, meaning that deals with semantics. Whereas,
but why is it that Deshika says that, as far as I'm concerned, both are of equal choice for me? This is what I did not understand, because he would have clearly opted for Abhidanvayavada. Had he been,
of course, my surmise is this, madam. Abhidanvayavada is adopted by Kumara Bhatta, Anvita Abhidana by Prabhakaras. By and large, Vishishta Advaitins go with Prabhakaras and Advaitins go with Kumara. So that might have been the reason, but still he makes this clarification that we are not very particular. And that could have been because both would be operative.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Discussion, please. Professor Paneerselvam, are you here? Please initiate the discussion. Yes, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Narasimhan,
Yes,
for your wonderful talk.
yes, sir.
I am pleased to see you after so many years.
Yes, I am very grateful to you, sir, seeing you. It's a pleasure to me, present.
Both of you reside in Chennai and then you don't happen to see each other.
Since Sir retired several years ago, I had no occasion to meet him. And very recently, last year, I retired also. So,
two short questions. Your talk was very good and it was very clear also.
Yes, sir.
I have two short questions. One is with regard to the sentence meaning which you are talking about.
Yes, sir.
The Anvita Vidanavada and Abhitanvayavada.
Yeah.
Now, very beautifully you pointed out for Desika, Anvita Vidanavada, it's okay, but there is no strict condition that one should stick on to this. For him, it is both are acceptable to some extent.
Yeah.
Now, I think the Advaitins also have a somewhat similar position. But those Advaitins who accept Anvita Vidanavada, they make a condition. What is that? That is, though they accept Anvita Vidanavada to some extent, they are of the view with regard to the verb of the sentence. Because the Mimamsa, especially the Prabhakara Mimamsaka, argue that verb is the nucleus of the sentence.
Yeah.
And to them, all other parts of the sentence go around this. So it is the nucleus. But this is not acceptable to the Advaitins for the main reason. If we accept the verb is the nucleus of the sentence, then it becomes action-oriented sentences, which may not be acceptable to them. So what is the position? Why the Vishadvaitins are not in a dilemma like the Advaitins? You get my point, Narasimhanji?
Of course.
Because I feel that Anvita Vidanavada is more acceptable to them, but like the Advaitins, they can also make a condition that this part, namely the verb is the nucleus of the sentence, is not acceptable to them because it is okay for the Mimamsakas. This is my first question. And secondly, while talking about the Pramanas, you talked about perception, Pratyaksha and Shabda. Now, normally it is said, I mean, the Advaitins argue when there is a conflict between the scriptural statement and I mean, perception, that is pratyaksha, they say that more weightage must be given to scripture because it is authentic, whereas this perceptual statements are not something which is not correct always.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to Vedanta Desika, it is very clear that he has pointed out that when there is a conflict between a scriptural statement and perception, he said the scriptural statement has to be interpreted in terms of perception. This, I would say, is a very beautiful approach because here I would like to throw some light from the Western tradition, especially the phenomenological tradition, wherein they talk about what is known as the intentionality of consciousness. For them, all objects that we see have consciousness. That is, a thing has to be understood in terms of perception only, because no perception or the real experience of the world comes to us through perception. So, like the phenomenologists of the Western tradition, like Husserl and others, I feel the Vishtadvaitins, especially Vedanta Desika, also gives weightage to perception rather than scriptural literacy. It doesn't mean that he is underestimating the scriptural statement, but he said it has to be interpreted in terms of perception. On the other side, the Advaitins turn the table. So this is what I understood from your talk, and this is how I understood Vedanta Desika. What is your view?
Yes, sir. Regarding the first question, that verb is the pivot. That is not only the view of the Mimamsakas, but that is also the view of the Vyakarnas also. Grammarians also, for them, verb is the pivot. So all words, actually you get the sentence meaning only when you syntactically connect every word with the verb. That is where it is actually connected. So that is acceptable to the Vishishtadvaitins. But the stress, the point where the two differ, that is Mimamsakas and Vyakarnas, is according to Mimamsakas, there is a Prathama Vyutpattihi Anyatra Nasambhavati, he says. Mimamsakas say. That means where you can get the meaning of a word only when there is a Karyanvaya. So just like that, you cannot get the meaning. I mean, when you get the meaning of a word for the first time, when children start their learning process, they can have the meanings of words only as through actions. So that is their emphasis. That is where the Advaitins or even Vishishta Advaitins differ from them. That is not a precondition. Children learn from other sources. That is, of course, they learn that way also, other words also. Mother takes the child and says, oh, see, this is a dog, this is a cat, there is a monkey. So there is no Karyan there. Not only the moving things, like there is a pot, this is something in TV, something. They point out and they say, where there is no Karyan there also, the child learns. So your view is wrong. That is the view of the both Advaitins, Vishishta Advaitins, others. Mimamsakas, they emphasize that that could happen only through Karyanvaya. But whereas the Vyakarnas, they say verb is the pivot because as you analyze the sentence, you see that every word is syntactically connected only to the verb. So that is a view acceptable to Vedanta. I think even Advaitins in that way, in that place, they may not differ from the Vishishta Advaitins. This is one thing. Then regarding this, your second question, sir, Anvida Bidana Abhihitanvada. You just remind me, sir. I just unmute yourself, sir, please.
Pratyaksha and scriptural statements.
Yeah. Regarding this Pratyaksha and scriptural statements. Yeah. So the basic difference between the two is, for Advaitins, what has been given by the scriptures, that is the ultimate truth. Only they are capable of giving the ultimate truth. Whereas for the Vishishta Advaitins, every pramana is a pramana in its own right. And the scope of each pramana does not come in conflict with each other. Pratyaksha, whatever it gives, whatever is given from Pratyaksha, you get from Pratyaksha, you don't get from the Shabda Pramana. So though I can say maybe, sir, I mean a child to a child I can say this is a pot. So now this is a Shabda Pramana for the child, but the child actually also sees it with its own eyes. So that way there is a Pratyaksha Pramana. Now it gets the same knowledge from Shabda Pramana also. Now the two, do they come into conflict? For the Advaitins, yeah, they do. The two come into conflict. But for the Vishishta Advaitins, this is reiterated. What is known from Pratyaksha is given by the Shabda Pramana also. But just because what has been given by the Shabda Pramana is given by the Pratyaksha is given by Shabda Pramana also, that does not make the Shabda Pramana invalid. That is a view of the Vishishta Advaitins. Whereas for Advaitins, it makes it invalid. When something is known from one source, if it is given by from some another source, that it makes it invalid. Anadikata avadidartha vishaya jnanatvam they say, so it should be anadikata. So that condition is not necessary apparently. That is one thing. So when there is a conflict, apparent conflict between Pratyaksha and Shruti, as in the case say, Adityo Yupaha. There is a sentence, Adityo Yupaha. Yajamanah Prastaraha. Kind of statements are there in the Vedas. We can say when you take a very few. What does it mean? What Adityo Yupaha? Yupa means Yupastamba, or the post where the animal is going to be tied there in the yaga. Now the Veda Vakya says that Yupastamba, it is Aditya itself. What is Aditya? Surya, that is the sun. Actually, there is an obvious conflict between the two. Aditya cannot be Yupa, and Yupa cannot be Aditya. Then why the word Veda says that? Because why there is it is not possible, but because your Pratyaksha says the two are different. Yupa is here, Aditya is there. It is so dull, that is so prakasha. So still the Veda says this because it doesn't make the Vedic statement invalid. That is the first point. Pratyaksha does not make it invalid. Why? Because the intention of the statement is something different. What it intends to say is, is it not very obvious that the two are different? Still, why it is made? Because you must polish it so very nice, so very well, that it should be shining as like the sun. It's not going to be practically possible, but to make it sure that it should be so shining as much as possible. So to make it that way, it issues such a statement. So this point is to be taken. So whereas for the Advaitins, their problem is ultimately it is Brahman, and ultimately it is the Jiva Tattva and the Brahma Tattva being one and the same without a second. So that point could not be known from any other source. To drive that point, that it could be known only from the Vedas, not from the any other source, they make it the ultimate truth. Now, if the two come into conflict, and if Pratyaksha is, somewhere at some places Pratyaksha could be made to be more powerful, then the argument can go that in this place also Pratyaksha is more powerful, and the two cannot be one and the same. To avoid such a possibility, it has been said that Vedas are the ultimate truth. Nothing can come into conflict. I think I have given the.
Yeah, thank you. Over to Prasanna.
Yeah.
Prasanna, please ask it.
Unmute yourself, whoever wants to, please.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. I have two questions. When you were referring to word meanings, and when you are referring to that particular example that Ganga stands for Ganga Tira,
Yeah.
I was reminded of the metonymic relationship. So in cognitive linguistics, there are two concepts where one word stands for something else. So that is a metaphoric relationship and a metonymic relationship. So metaphor is something like when we say something like flower smiled. So flower can't smile, but we think it as a person or something like that. So it is a metaphor. In case we are
Yeah.
trying to understand from Ganga is trying got from the idea Ganga. So Ganga as a whole stands for the part Ganga Tira. So it's a metonymic relationship as I can see. So I would like to ask you how this concepts metonymy and metaphor is dealt in Indian philosophy, especially related to testimony. And the second question is a very layman question. I would like to, in Plato, we see the discussion that who's an expert. So, in the same context, they ask very simple questions: who's an expert, who's a skilled worker, something like that. So, when you are trying to find a parallel, and we are asking the question, who's an apta? So, we in Indian philosophy, as far as my little knowledge is concerned, we talk about apta, who knows the ultimate reality or something like that. But please correct me if I'm wrong. So, how it is dealt in Indian philosophy that a farmer is apta in his field of knowledge. So, how do you bring into this concept, the concept of apta? And when you are like trying to find a parallel between the Plato's discussion, where they try to understand who's an expert. Thank you.
Okay, I will first address your second question. Who is an apta? By and large, if you can observe, almost we encounter only with aptas. Please exclude politicians. Okay, so all those who we meet on our day-to-day encounter, mostly all things are only reliable things. Especially in particular fields, if you want, experts may be aptas, but there may be differences of opinions among the experts. So there, one who knows the ultimate truth, only he is an apta. So that we don't need to stress at the vyavaharika level. So in the paramarthika level, they speak, those things are not for layman people like us. We can see 99.9% people are not concerned with those things. For us, all are aptas. That's one thing. And one more thing, whom do we say is a liar? Even a liar cannot keep lying everything. Whatever he says is going to be a lie, then he will be just thrown out. Nobody will take him even. Okay. So even in the case of a liar, you can see 99% of what he says is going to be truth, and only some 1% or less than that is going to be a falsehood, where he intends to mislead you. Even a person who wants to mislead you, he has to utter so many truths to mislead you at one place or somewhere, something else. So I think this is one thing. Regarding this metonymic and metaphoric relationships, generally the Vedantic texts, metaphor kinds of things are not dealt with much. Only in Alankara Shastra, those things have been dealt with in detail. So whatever has been given by them, that has been taken by the Vedantins where needed. They don't just care to either accept or dismiss those things. Regarding metonymic, yeah, they have made these discussions like Abhida Benjana kind of things. Anything, do I need to clarify anything more? Am I clear about this?
That is lovely. What you spoke about, the first question that really attracts me, we mostly encountered aptas. That is very true.
Yeah.
And Alvin Goldman, Prasanna, I'm both Prasanna, and all those who are exposed to, I don't know whether Professor Paneerselvam has left. I think he's here.
Yeah.
Alvin I. Goldman also says that man has a natural disposition to speak the truth.
Yeah, naturally.
And not only that, he has a natural disposition to speak the truth, over and above that, he also has a natural disposition to share his knowledge.
Yeah.
And the fundamental factor of testimonial knowledge and the validity of it. See, if we did not have this natural disposition, I presume that Shabda wouldn't have become a pramana at all. Because, if you start doubting everything that another says, then there's no end to it. And
Go down the street and meet some stranger, we ask something. Naturally, such persons speak only truth. They don't mislead us.
Mostly, yeah. It's based on human disposition to share the knowledge on one and largely to speak the truth. And these are two factors based on which, much later Western epistemology has come open with testimony. As you all know, that testimony was not part and parcel of Western epistemological discourse. It's only very recently, I think C.G. Cody and then Alvin Goldman, some of them have, I think it is post 1970s that they have started discussing on testimonial knowledge. I still remember Arindam saying that, how do you know what is your birthday? It is a testimonial knowledge because you wouldn't have perceived. So somebody else will have to tell you that so and so is your birth date.
Yeah.
So, once upon a time, the West used to make fun of us for accepting pramanas like upamana, shabda, and all that. Now today, they extend their hands to embrace all these wisdom and insights of our ancient masters. So lovely discussion. And any other question?
From anybody else?
If not, then let me have my assistant director, Professor Shiba, to deliver the vote of thanks and to sum up the whole procedure.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to one and all. A respected resource person, Professor Narasimhan sir, renowned scholar, Professor Paneerselvam sir, Professor Srikala ma'am, Director, International School for Sri Shankaracharya Studies, distinguished scholars, and my dear students. A warm good evening to one and all. The Sri Shankara Study Circle, the Mangdri program organized by International School for Sri Shankaracharya Studies under the title Mula Grantha Padaha Vyakhyacha is successfully completing its yet another episode with the brilliant exposition of the Shabda Pramana of Yatīndramatadīpika by none other than Professor Narasimhan sir, a great scholar and a good follower of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. Now, it is the duty and entrusted on me is to express the official vote of thanks. It is my privilege and pleasure to express our deep sense of gratitude to Professor Narasimhan sir for the brilliant exposition of Shabda Pramana, quoting abundantly from Vedanta Deshika, from expressing the Anudabhidanavada, Abhidanyavada, etc. Thank you very much, sir, for your explanation. Thank you, sir. We extend our sincere gratitude to great Professor, Senior Professor, Professor Paneerselvam sir, for joining us with us and also for initiating the great discussion. Now, I would like to express our sincere thanks to Professor Srikala ma'am, our patron, for brilliantly organizing all the academic activities of International School for Sri Shankaracharya Studies. Thank you, ma'am, for your brilliant coordination. I express our sincere gratitude to all the distinguished scholars and my dear research scholars for joining with us in this good evening. And I extend my sincere thanks to one and all. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, all the participants. Thanks. Special thanks to Madam Sir, I am really grateful to you. Really grateful to you. I just can't.
I am also grateful to Professor Paneerselvam
Can't
for decorating.
I spent time with you, sir, in the Department of Philosophy.
Yeah, those are wonderful days. Yeah.
Those were the wonderful days. Yeah. And I see a lot of youngsters also. Please do join. This program is largely meant for you to, chisel you, as it were, so that the tradition continues. And ISS is doing a small bit of it. We have such great treasures like Yatīndramatadīpika. And it was wonderful that you brought in Śabdapariccheda of Deshika also, because it went very well, Professor Narasimhan. Both the texts went very well. So it's wonderful. So thank you. And we are starting a journal called Parispanda. So to Professor Narasimhan, Professor Paneerselvam has already contributed a paper. So please preserve papers whenever you have time. Do write. I know that it's very difficult to make Sanskrit professors, right? Because they are orators. I realize that. But still try to write down something, even a small paper.
Yeah.
And then if you send it to us, then we will publish it. Also for the youngsters, I'm planning to have, some space kept for young scholars. How about it, Shiba? I'm sure you would also agree with me.
Yes, ma'am.
Some small space for the youngsters, so that let them also have, a chance for academic writing. Let them also flourish, because we'll have to give them space. So do join us. Do send your papers.
In a way, it is. I should especially thank you, because it gives me some opportunity to brush the things, go through the things, and brush our knowledge again. So that is a very great opportunity. Otherwise, no occasion to look into all these things.
Once Professor Varkhedi told me that, he is such a busy administrator. I said that you'll have to read a Dvaita text for me. And he was forced to read a Dvaita text. So he was saying that, Shrikala, I'm so glad that you made me sit and read the text. These are the ways that we sit and read. When you say that you're going to speak Yatīndramatadīpika, I also just, rush through the text so that you get an opportunity to see the text. Anyway, lovely time. So thank you all once again.
Special thanks to Usha ma'am also. Usha ma'am also is here.
Yeah, Usha, lovely to have you, Usha. Okay then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father.
Yes, ma'am.
Good night.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.